The galaxy is a vast expanse, dominated by ruthless alien empires, each stronger than the last. Among them, the Khazar Empire stands out as the most feared and technologically advanced force in the universe. They have invaded countless worlds, crushing civilizations with ease. Their robotic soldiers and fleets of artificial intelligence-powered ships sweep through entire planets, leaving nothing but destruction in their wake. Planets that dared to resist have been erased, their people annihilated. The galaxy trembles at their might. Yet, Earth, the once thriving home of humanity, is nothing more than a distant myth. Lost in time and space, the people of Earth are believed to be long gone, swallowed by the unforgiving cosmos. For centuries, no one has thought of the humans who had once stood at the top of the food chain. No one, except for a few who still believed in Earth's forgotten glory. In the heart of the Khazar Empire, Supreme Commander Zarek oversees his forces from his flagship, the Eternus. He stands in front of a massive galactic map, plotting his next conquest. The humans, those primitive creatures from Earth, were nothing more than a joke. Their resistance was pathetic, and their technology laughable. Yet Zarek couldn't shake the lingering thought. What if they weren't as weak as they appeared? He dismissed the thought quickly. Earth was far behind the rest of the galaxy, a dead world. His empire was unstoppable. As his fleet surged through the void, Zarek's eyes glinted with cold confidence. Earth was next. The time had come to crush it once and for all. With a cruel smile on his face, he turned to his officers. This time, there will be no survivors. The humans are nothing but a shadow of what they once were. We will erase them from the stars, and they will never be remembered again. The officers nodded, their loyalty unwavering. They had heard this speech many times before. It was the same every time they conquered a new world. Except this time, it was Earth, a planet lost in myth, now awaiting its final reckoning. The Khazar were certain. Earth had no chance. Yet deep beneath the surface of this long-forgotten world, a secret stirred, a secret that had remained hidden for millennia. Far away, in a remote underground laboratory, a team of Earth's most brilliant scientists were working tirelessly, unaware of the impending doom. Their project was years in the making, a last-ditch effort to revive humanity's lost legacy. They had discovered strange, ancient signals coming from deep within the Earth's crust. These signals had been traced to a location miles beneath the surface, an uncharted region. It was there that they uncovered the artifact, buried under layers of time and forgotten history. At first, they thought it was just another relic, a piece of an ancient civilization. But as they began their investigation, they realized the true nature of their discovery. It was a ship, massive, and unlike anything the modern world had ever seen. The ship's design was beyond anything they could comprehend, and its power source was unlike any technology known to humanity. They were looking at something far beyond their time. As they dug deeper into the artifact, something incredible happened. The ship, once dormant, began to hum, activating as if it had been waiting for this very moment. The room filled with a low, resonating sound as lights flickered to life. And then, a voice so clear, it seemed to echo through the very walls, spoke. Initiating revival protocol. Humanity's last stand begins. The voice was mechanical, but it held a strange sense of purpose. The scientists watched in awe and terror as the massive ship slowly powered up, revealing its true scale. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, sleek, black, and deadly. The ancient ship was not just a relic, it was a weapon. And not just any weapon, a fleet. With a sudden surge of power, the ship's systems came online, and the dormant fleets hidden across Earth's surface began to awaken. These were no ordinary warships. The Titan Armada, as it was known, had been humanity's last hope, built by Earth's ancestors to defend against any threat that the galaxy could muster. But before it could be used, the fleets had been hidden, forgotten, and left to slumber beneath the Earth. As the systems continued to come online, the ship's AI began to take control. The massive fleet was ready to rise again, ready to challenge the forces that had long believed Earth to be nothing more than a dead world. A young captain named Marcus Steele was chosen to command these ancient fleets. Steele had been just a child when the last remnants of humanity's military power had been buried beneath the Earth. Now, as a seasoned officer, he stood at the helm of the Titan Armada, tasked with leading the greatest military force humanity had ever known. Steele had heard the legends, the stories of the fleet that had once protected humanity from invaders and threats. But even he had never imagined that it would come to this. As he gazed upon the ships, now fully awake and preparing for battle, a wave of awe washed over him. These ships were more than just weapons. They were a symbol of humanity's strength, resilience, and determination to survive. But with that awe came the heavy burden of responsibility. Steele was not just commanding a fleet. He was leading Earth's last chance for survival. The Khazar were coming, and humanity's fate rested on his shoulders. As the A's voice echoed through the fleet's command center, Steele could feel the weight of the moment. The Titan Armada was ready, but the Khazar had no idea what was coming. Steele's thoughts turned to the fallen soldiers of humanity's past, those who had given their lives to protect the Earth they loved. Would their sacrifices be enough to guide humanity to victory, or had Earth's time already passed? Looking at the faces of his crew, Steele knew the stakes. They had all lost something: family, friends, homes. And now, they were bound together in this final, desperate fight. Earth's fate was in their hands. There was no turning back. This was humanity's last stand, and they would fight with everything they had. As Steele prepared to lead the Armada into battle, the Khazar fleet approached, unaware of the storm that was about to hit them. Zarek, in his flagship, smiled confidently as he received the final reports from his officers. Earth would fall. There was no other possibility. But on the surface of Earth, deep within the underground bunkers and labs, the first sign of humanity's rebirth was unfolding. The battle for the galaxy was about to begin, and Earth's forgotten power was ready to take its place once more. The silent storm was awakening, and with it, humanity's fury. The Titan Armada, Earth's once-forgotten fleet, was slowly coming to life. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, in the long-hidden command centers, a low hum filled the air as the dormant ships powered up, their systems coming online one by one. These ships, relics of a past long gone, were humanity's last hope. Their technology was ancient, yet far more advanced than anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. Cloaking devices shimmered to life, making the ships nearly invisible to any enemy radar. AI-driven weapon systems hummed with lethal precision, ready to strike with deadly force. Each ship had been designed for one purpose: to protect humanity and eliminate its most dangerous enemies. The Titan Armada was a force like no other, equipped with weapons, shields, and strategies that could overpower even the mightiest of foes. But for centuries, these ships had been buried, forgotten by all. No one had even known they existed. That is, until now. Commander Zarek, the supreme leader of the Khazar Empire, had received reports from his scouts about unusual energy readings coming from Earth. At first, he brushed them off as anomalies, nothing more than random fluctuations in the planet's core. But as the reports grew more frequent, his curiosity was piqued. Still, he dismissed the possibility that Earth had anything to offer. The humans had been wiped out long ago, their world nothing more than a myth. The Khazar had destroyed everything they'd encountered. There was no threat left on Earth, or so Zarek thought. Meanwhile, on Earth, the revived fleet was readying for battle. Captain Marcus Steele stood on the bridge of the flagship, staring out at the vast fleet of ships that would soon carry humanity's wrath to the stars. The ship beneath his feet seemed to hum with life, its once dormant engines now roaring with power. Steele had only one thought in his mind: Earth had a chance, but they had no time to waste. The Khazar were coming, and they were not going to go down without a fight. As Steele prepared to take command, he was introduced to his crew, the men and women who would fight alongside him. They were survivors, soldiers who had fought in the trenches of previous battles, people who had lost everything but still stood strong. Steele's heart swelled with pride as he looked at them, knowing that these were the warriors who would save their home. Among them was Lieutenant Bonnie, a seasoned officer whose tough exterior hid a compassionate heart. She was a natural leader, quick to make tough decisions, but always considering the well-being of her crew. Her experience in battle was invaluable, but it was her heart and dedication to humanity's survival that made her an essential part of the team. She had seen the worst the universe had to offer, and now, with Earth's fate hanging in the balance, she was ready to face it again. Next was Sergeant Klein, a fearless warrior whose reputation preceded him. Known for his incredible strength and unwavering loyalty, Klein was a force to be reckoned with. He had fought in countless skirmishes, and despite his rough exterior, he cared deeply for his comrades. His role on the team was clear. He was the one who would lead the charge, leading from the front and ensuring that no one was left behind. His bravery would inspire the others when things got tough. The rest of the crew was a mix of soldiers, engineers, and scientists, each chosen for their skills and determination. They all shared one thing in common: the belief that Earth could be saved. They had lost everything to the Khazar: homes, families, and loved ones. And now, they had nothing left but the will to fight. Earth's survival depended on their success. It was as simple as that. However, as Steele gathered his crew and prepared for the upcoming battle, the weight of their situation hit them hard. They weren't just fighting for Earth's survival, they were fighting to avenge the countless lives lost in the Khazar's previous assaults. Many of their comrades, their families, and friends were still lost in space, victims of the Khazar's merciless raids. The emotional toll of their loss was something none of them could ignore. Bonnie's eyes were filled with grief as she looked out at the fleet. "We've all lost someone," she said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of the pain she felt. "But this is our chance to make sure no more lives are lost, to make sure they never hurt anyone again." Klein stood silently beside her, his jaw set with determination. "We take the fight to them. We show them what happens when they push humanity too far." Steele nodded, his face hardening with resolve. "This isn't just about survival. It's about justice. We're not just going to defend Earth. We're going to make them regret ever thinking they could conquer us." As the Titan Armada readied itself for battle, Steele felt the bond between him and his crew grow stronger. They weren't just soldiers. They were a family. Each of them had lost something, but together, they would rise. Together, they would fight for Earth. Despite the mounting pressure, Steele remained focused. He had been chosen to lead this mission, and he would not fail. The Titan Armada was more than just a fleet. It was humanity's last stand, and they would stand tall. As the fleet began to move, preparing to face the Khazar in battle, Steele's mind raced. The technology they wielded was powerful, but it was also ancient and unpredictable. They had no idea how the Khazar would respond when they learned that Earth's lost fleets had awoken. Would the Khazar underestimate them, or would they prepare for the unimaginable? There was no turning back now. Steele knew that whatever happened, the crew of the Titan Armada would give everything they had to protect Earth, and in doing so, they would show the galaxy that humanity was far from weak. They were about to unleash a storm the universe had never seen before. The battle was about to begin, and Earth's greatest weapon was awake. The Khazar had no idea what was coming. The Titan Armada surged forward into the unknown, their cloaking devices humming quietly as they blended into the darkness of space. The ancient ships, now fully awakened, were ready to make their first move against the Khazar. The sudden strike would catch the Khazar completely off guard, and humanity's fleet had the element of surprise on its side. The dark void of space seemed to hold its breath as the massive ships, each one brimming with advanced weaponry, prepared to unleash their fury. Captain Marcus Steele stood on the bridge of the flagship, his eyes scanning the battlefield ahead. His hands tightened around the controls as the countdown to battle began. The Titan armada was outnumbered, but Steele knew they had something the Khazar never expected: ancient technology far beyond anything the enemy could understand or counter. Earth's fleet had no experience in modern warfare. They had no choice but to fight with the tools of the past. But those tools, it turned out, were more than enough. The first strike came with breathtaking speed. Without warning, the Titan armada's ships emerged from the shadows, their cloaking devices deactivating as they revealed their terrifying presence. Orbital bombardment cannons fired from the ships, sending devastating waves of energy hurtling toward the Khazar's front lines. The explosions lit up the darkness of space, shaking the enemy fleet to its core. Shockwaves rippled through the Khazar ships as their defensive shields shattered under the intense firepower. The precision of the strike was unmatched. Laser beams cut through Khazar warships with surgical accuracy, leaving them crippled and disintegrating in an instant. The Khazar fleet, so confident in their overwhelming strength, was completely caught off guard. They hadn't expected such a precise, devastating attack from a fleet that was supposed to be nothing more than a myth. The ships, equipped with state-of-the-art cloaking technology and artificial intelligence that controlled every aspect of the battle, struck from the shadows and left the Khazar scrambling to react. The Khazar forces, despite their technological advantage, were ill-prepared for the ferocity of humanity's retaliation. The Titan armada, although smaller in number, fought with the rage and determination of a species pushed to the brink of extinction. Each ship, each soldier, was driven by the memory of all they had lost: the families, the homes, the lives destroyed by the Khazar's previous raids. And now, with the power of their ancient fleet, they would make the Khazar pay. On the front lines, Sergeant Klein led the charge, his fearless determination an inspiration to his comrades. As the battle raged on, his squadron moved with precision, taking down enemy ship after enemy ship. The Khazar were no longer laughing at humanity. They were now fighting for their lives, facing a relentless force they couldn't comprehend. Klein's team tore through the enemy lines, their weapons and tactics coordinated and deadly. They weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for revenge. Every Khazar ship that exploded was a victory for every lost life, every friend, every family member they'd lost to the Khazar's merciless campaigns. But in the heat of the battle, fate took a cruel turn. As Klein's squadron advanced deeper into enemy territory, they found themselves outnumbered and surrounded. A Khazar warship, massive and heavily armed, appeared from the darkness, aiming its weapons directly at the squadron. Klein's team fought back fiercely, but they were outmatched, their efforts barely making a dent in the Khazar's massive vessel. Seeing his team in danger, Klein made the ultimate decision. He ordered his squadron to retreat to safety, and in a heroic act, he stayed behind to cover their escape. His ship was struck by enemy fire, and Klein's final moments were spent ensuring the others could survive. His sacrifice was a turning point for the crew. His death would not be in vain. The rest of the crew, watching in horror as their friend and comrade fell, felt the weight of his loss, but they also felt the fire of his spirit ignite within them. Klein's death would not be forgotten. It would fuel their desire for revenge. "Sergeant Klein is gone," Steele said quietly over the comms, "but we won't let him die in vain. This fight is for him, for all of us. We fight until the last Khazar is gone." The words hung in the air, and for a moment, there was silence across the fleet. Then, one by one, the ships of the Titan armada responded, their weapons charging once more. The battle was far from over, but Klein's sacrifice had sealed their resolve. The Khazar were no longer invincible. They had awoken a sleeping giant, and this giant was ready to strike back. As the Titan armada continued its assault, the emotional weight of the battle became clear. It wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. It was a fight for every person the Khazar had killed, every life they had destroyed. The people of Earth were no longer the underdogs. They were the Avengers, and they would stop at nothing to ensure that the Khazar never threatened their world again. With every explosion, with every Khazar ship that fell, the Titan Armada sent a message. Humanity was back, and the Khazar would learn to fear them. The first strike had been successful, but the war was just beginning. The tension in the void of space had never been more intense. After the surprise attack by Earth's revived Titan Armada, Commander Zarek, Supreme Commander of the Khazar Empire, seethed with rage. His fleet had been crippled, his forces shattered by the unexpected might of humanity's ancient weapons. The loss was devastating, and Zarek could not allow it to stand. Earth had dared to fight back, and now he would make them pay. "Prepare for a counterattack," Zarek growled, his voice cold and filled with fury. "Send every available warship, every eye-controlled weapon we have. This ends now." His eyes gleamed with a dark promise. Earth's resistance had awoken a wrath the Khazar had long kept dormant, and they would not stop until humanity was crushed. Zarek's orders echoed across the galaxy, and reinforcements began to pour in from all corners of Khazar space. Massive warships, far larger and more heavily armed than anything Earth had faced, surged toward the battle. Along with them came AI-driven superweapons, unstoppable, relentless machines programmed for one thing: total annihilation. As the reinforcements arrived, the Khazar fleet swelled in size, ready to engulf the small human force. The balance of power had shifted once again, and Earth's forces braced for the largest, most brutal battle they had ever faced. The Titan Armada, although powerful, was still vastly outnumbered. Captain Marcus Steele stood on the bridge of the flagship, the weight of the coming battle heavy on his shoulders. He looked around at his crew, at the faces of the men and women who had stood by him through every fight, every victory. Their eyes were filled with determination, but Steele knew they couldn't afford to be overconfident. They were still the underdogs. Despite their technological advantages, they faced an enemy with overwhelming numbers and terrifying weaponry. But if there was one thing Earth's soldiers had learned, it was to never give up. The fate of the galaxy now rested on their shoulders. As the battle loomed closer, the first wave of Khazar warships broke through the darkness, their massive forms emerging from the void like giant predators closing in on their prey. The human ships, still cloaked and hidden, waited in silence, their weapons primed and ready. The silence was shattered by the deafening roar of combat as the first shots were fired. Orbital bombardment cannons on the Khazar ships lit up the sky, sending waves of energy crashing down onto Earth's fleets. The explosions were blinding, and space seemed to tremble with the force of each strike. The Khazar warships, though massive, were slow and lumbering. But they had one thing Earth's ships didn't: sheer, brutal firepower. For every human ship that dodged an incoming blast, another would take the hit, buckling under the weight of the attack. But Earth's forces were ready. Using their advanced cloaking devices, the human ships evaded many of the Khazar's attacks, slipping through the darkness of space like ghosts. When they struck, they did so with precision, their laser cannons cutting through the Khazar ships with deadly accuracy. Each attack was quick, sharp, and brutal, tearing through enemy hulls before the Khazar could react. The battle turned into a chaotic storm of flashing lights and brutal impacts. Khazar warships closed in, and close-quarters combat erupted as humanity's fleets fought to hold their ground. The human ships, smaller and more agile, darted in and out of enemy formations, using evasive maneuvers to avoid direct confrontation. But every time they fired, the damage was undeniable. Explosions rocked the space around them as human ships collided with the Khazar's massive warships. The sounds of destruction were deafening. Even through the cold void of space, the battle was a deadly game of cat and mouse. Earth's forces darted in, taking down key targets, then disappearing back into the shadows before the Khazar could retaliate. Captain Steele and his crew worked in perfect harmony, every decision critical to their survival. The Titan Armada was not a force to be reckoned with, but the Khazar were relentless. Steel watched as his fleet fought valiantly, but every victory was met with an overwhelming counterattack. The Khazar's superweapons were nearly unstoppable, their AI-driven machines cutting through the human ships with terrifying efficiency. Despite this, Steel's crew held strong. They fought with everything they had, knowing the stakes were higher than ever. The Khazar, once laughing at the idea of humanity rising up, were now struggling to match Earth's fierce resistance. With every explosion, every strike, the humans proved they were more than just survivors. They were warriors, and they would not be crushed. The battle raged on, each side taking heavy losses. The human ships fought with the knowledge that their backs were against the wall. They had no reinforcements to rely on, no hope beyond their own strength and willpower. But Earth's people had something the Khazar could never understand: unity. In the face of impossible odds, they fought not just for their own survival, but for the survival of everything they held dear. With every blast, with every missile fired, the message was clear: humanity would not go down without a fight. The Khazar had underestimated them before, but now they were learning the hard truth: Earth was not a world to be taken lightly. As the battle stretched on, it was clear that this would be no easy victory. But the Khazar had never fought an enemy like humanity, and the Titans of Earth were about to prove that they were a force to be reckoned with. This was only the beginning, and Earth's warriors were ready for whatever came next. The battle between humanity and the Khazar Empire had reached its breaking point. The Titan Armada, though battered and scarred, was still standing tall. The Khazar forces, however, were relentless, bringing wave after wave of destruction. But now, in the cold emptiness of space, the final confrontation was about to begin. In the center of a shattered star system, amidst the remains of destroyed planets, Captain Marcus Steele prepared for the battle that would decide the fate of Earth and the galaxy. The Khazar had underestimated humanity at every turn, but now they would face the full wrath of Earth's ancient technology. At the heart of the Khazar fleet, a massive flagship, the Zereth, the most advanced warship the Khazar had ever created, loomed like a dark behemoth. It was an imposing sight, bristling with weapons and protected by powerful shields. But Steele and his crew had something the Khazar did not: hope, determination, and the will to fight for a future. All hands, brace yourselves. Captain Steele's voice rang out across the ship. His crew, battered from the previous battles, were ready for this final push. The fate of humanity rested on their shoulders, and there would be no retreat, no turning back. The Titan Armada's assault would be a daring one, a strike against the heart of the Khazar's strength. With the fleet in position, Steele led the charge, weaving between the shadows of the stars and using the cloaking technology to avoid detection. The Titan Armada, smaller but faster and more agile, moved in unison, darting between the massive warships of the Khazar. Their weapons, once thought to be the stuff of myth, were now aimed at the flagship, ready to strike with deadly force. The first salvo struck the Khazar flagship with devastating accuracy. Energy cannons cut through the flagship's shields like paper, causing explosions to ripple across the massive ship. But Zarek, seated in the heart of his command center, was far from defeated. He gritted his teeth, fury in his eyes. "All units, engage." Zarek's voice thundered through his ship's communication system. The Khazar forces responded with deadly precision, launching waves of fighters and sending their most powerful warships into battle. But the Titan Armada was relentless, striking with brutal force and evading every counterattack. The battle raged around them, but Steele's focus remained on one thing: bringing down the Zereth. As the space battle erupted into chaos, Steele knew the fight wasn't just about firepower. The time had come for a more personal confrontation. It was time to board the flagship, to face Zarek himself. Steele, with Lieutenant Bonnie by his side, gathered a small team of soldiers for a daring boarding operation. The rest of the fleet would keep the Khazar distracted, providing the cover they needed for the assault. The Titan Armada's cloaking devices masked their approach, allowing Steele's team to slip past enemy lines unnoticed. As they neared the flagship, Steele felt the weight of the mission on his shoulders. This was no longer just about winning a battle. It was about sending a message to the galaxy that humanity would not fall. As they boarded the Zereth, Steele and Bonnie led their team through the dark corridors, moving swiftly and silently. The crew of the flagship, taken by surprise, scrambled to organize a defense, but they were no match for the human boarding party. With weapons drawn and determination in their hearts, they fought their way to the heart of the Khazar ship. Finally, they'd reached the command deck, where Zarek awaited them. The commander stood tall, his armor gleaming, and his eyes filled with hatred. "You think you can defeat me?" Zarek sneered. "You are nothing. The Khazar will reign supreme." Steele stepped forward, his voice calm but filled with undeniable conviction. "You underestimated humanity," he said, his words carrying through the room. "We've fought for every inch of our existence, and now we fight for our future. Humanity will not fall. We will rise, no matter the cost." With that, the two leaders clashed in hand-to-hand combat. Zarek, using his advanced strength and combat training, came at Steele with brutal force. But Steele, with his quick thinking and human ingenuity, was able to outmaneuver the Khazar commander. The battle was fierce, with every punch and kick landing with deadly force. Bonnie and the rest of the team fought off the Khazar soldiers that tried to interfere, clearing the way for Steele to face Zarek alone. As the fight raged on, Steele's mind raced. He couldn't let Zarek win. He couldn't let the Khazar crush Earth's hope. With one final, desperate move, Steele disarmed Zarek and pinned him to the ground. "This ends now," Steele said, his voice filled with the weight of the countless lives lost in this war. Zarek, gasping for air, sneered one last time. "You think this will stop the Khazar? We will rise again." Steele shook his head. "No, Zarek, you will not." He delivered the final blow, ending the tyrant's reign of terror. As the Zereth began to implode around them, Steele and his team raced to escape the crumbling flagship. The Titan Armada had successfully completed its mission. Zarek was dead, and the Khazar Empire had been dealt a blow it would never recover from. As they returned to their ship, the crew of the Titan Armada gathered in silence. They had fought, bled, and lost so much, but in the end, they had won. The Khazar had been defeated, and Earth had proven that it was not a planet to be forgotten. Humanity had sent a message to the galaxy. No matter the odds, no matter the enemy, they would always rise. And with that, the stars above Earth shone brighter than ever before. In the final moments of the fierce battle, Captain Marcus Steele stood face to face with the reality of what he had to do. The Khazar flagship, the Zereth, loomed ominously in front of him. It was the heart of the enemy's remaining forces, and with its advanced weaponry and shields, it seemed invincible. But Steele knew that Earth's survival rested on one final desperate act. The entire galaxy would watch this moment, humanity's last chance to prove that they would not fall into the dark abyss of history. The massive warship shook violently as the battle outside raged on. Steele, standing at the heart of the Zereth, scanned the control panels of the ship's bridge. He had learned everything he needed to know about the Khazar technology in his time on board, and now he had one opportunity to strike. Zarek was gone, but the superweapon that had been built to crush Earth was still active. Its power could wipe out entire fleets in seconds, and if Steele didn't disable it now, the Titan Armada would be finished. There was no turning back. With one final, decisive action, Steele activated the emergency override and disabled the core of the Khazar superweapon. As the control system flickered in front of him, he set the warship to overload. The entire flagship would soon become nothing more than a mass of twisted metal and burning debris. But there was no time to celebrate. The countdown to destruction had begun. As Steele raced to the escape pod with his remaining team, he could feel the pulse of the Zereth as it shuddered under the stress. The energy released from the overload began to crackle through the ship, causing sparks to shoot from the walls. The crew's escape route was narrow, and each step brought them closer to certain death. But Steele knew they couldn't afford to wait. They had to leave now. With a final, nerve-wracking leap, Steele and his crew managed to escape the flagship just as it erupted in a violent explosion. The Zareth detonated in a blaze of brilliant light, sending shockwaves rippling through space. The explosion was felt across the galaxy, and for the Khazar, it was the death knell. The heart of their fleet was gone, and with it, their leadership had been destroyed. The remaining Khazar forces, leaderless and crippled, had no choice but to retreat. They fled in disarray, their once mighty fleet now reduced to scattered remnants. Earth's victory was sealed, but the cost had been high. Many had fallen in the fight, and the loss of their comrades would be a wound that would take time to heal. Yet, for all the sorrow, there was a sense of triumph in the air. The battle was over. Humanity had won. As the crew of the Titan Armada returned to Earth, the mood was somber. They had been through so much together, but there was still a sense of unity that bound them. In their darkest moments, they had found strength in each other, and in their final stand, they had defeated the impossible. Their sacrifice had been immense, but their courage had been even greater. They had held on, even when it seemed like all hope was lost. Back on Earth, the people celebrated their victory, but the celebrations were tempered by the heavy weight of their losses. Humanity had been pushed to the edge of extinction, but they had endured. The ancient fleets of Earth, thought to be nothing more than relics of the past, had risen again. And with them, humanity had restored its place among the stars. The galaxy had witnessed the power of Earth, and no one would ever underestimate the human race again. In the aftermath of the battle, Captain Steele addressed his crew. His words echoed through the halls of their ship, and even as they mourned the loss of their friends, they knew they had accomplished something extraordinary. We did it. The Khazar will never threaten Earth again. We've proven that humanity is not to be underestimated. We've shown the galaxy that we will fight for our future, no matter the cost. But the victory was not just a personal triumph. It was a message to the galaxy. Earth was back, and humanity would never be forgotten. The Khazar had been crushed, their empire destroyed. But this was only the beginning of humanity's true journey. Steele knew that the battles ahead would be just as difficult. There were still forces in the galaxy that would see Earth as a threat, and new challenges would arise. But for the first time in centuries, humanity had a chance to shape its own destiny. With the Titan Armada's victory, Earth sent a message to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. The message was simple, but powerful. We are back, and we will never be forgotten. It wasn't just a statement of survival. It was a declaration of humanity's strength and resilience. No matter what came next, they would face it together, and they would rise again. The legacy of the Titan Armada was now secured. They had been the first line of defense, the ancient protectors of Earth, and they had delivered humanity's greatest victory. The people of Earth would never forget the sacrifice of those who had fought and died to protect them, and they would honor their memory by ensuring that humanity's legacy would live on. The final chapter of this battle may have been written, but the story of humanity's future had just begun. With the Khazar defeated, and the galaxy now watching, Earth would rise to meet the challenges ahead. And in the hearts of every human, a new sense of purpose burned brighter than ever before. The galaxy was vast, but humanity had proved it was capable of anything. And as the stars above Earth flickered brightly in the vast expanse of space, one truth remained clear: humanity's journey was just beginning.